International Union there, and I would like to address some of the points that have recently come up. I did submit written testimony. I'm not going to bother rehashing what because, as someone earlier said, we all know you can read. My concern right now is how difficult this process is going to be for you. The state centers were created by acts of legislation, and in testimony you've heard comparing analysis. So people have talked about how studies done after Pennhurst closed 40 years ago showed that everything was so much better. In my Senate testimony, I actually cited the World Health Organization report from 2000, which showed people forced out of intermediate care facilities had an 83% higher mortality rate. So there was testimony given today that transfer trauma may not be a real thing. In the report that's being issued to the families, and this is actually part of the packet, I'd like to point out that they indicated of the 74 people who transferred from Hamburg, 13 have died in 32 months. So it's a percentage. If you do the same percentage with the 300 people between Whitehaven and Polk, you're looking at 48 people dying in the first 32 months after these facilities close. That's a pretty high rate, and it supports that 83% higher mortality rate. As a chief steward, one of my biggest concerns has been the absolute lack of transparency from the Department of Health and Human Services. I brought up during multiple labor management meetings that we are not being told what's going on. Everybody seems to believe that this was a sudden decision that was made in August. In June of 2019, or in July of 2019, the Service Employees International Union was told that 2 individuals would be role released from their positions to cover what we were told were special state projects. We weren't told what those special state projects were. A month later, the closure announcements were made, and that's where we were informed that those 2 people have been role released to oversee the SIS assessments in the LP process. The processes are being used to expedite people moving out of the state centers and into the community. We also were just told that we have until December 31st to get those processes done. So the closure announcements were in August, and despite the fact that the Department of Health and Human Services is saying that this is not going to be done rapidly, that it will be done with compassion and according to policy, they seem to be expediting the process as quickly as possible. And no one's willing to sit down and explain why those numbers are happening. Every individual at the state center has an individualized service plan review once a year. I asked the question why we couldn't just do the SIS assessments and ELP assessments during their ISP. I was told the decision came from Harrisburg that they need to be done by December 31st. This is 300 people. There's a lot of disparity around cost associated. It's already been discussed that we have open beds at the centers. I work in a building that has 68 people currently in it. We have 150 certified beds just in that building alone. So we could double the population just in one building at the Polk Center. There are 5 buildings at the Polk Center that are currently have certified beds. If you add more people to the centers, the cost goes down. The per diem annually goes down. No one wants to address the fact that despite the proposals to support people in the community, no one's actually addressed how they plan on addressing the current 4,905 individuals who are on the emergency needs waiting list. That number went up by 200 over the last 18 months. That's available as public knowledge. I'm concerned because since August, the announcement in August took everybody by shock, but since that time, no one seems to be giving any information on what's going on. The House Bill 1918 really is looking at a moratorium to slow things down so that you, as the legislatures, can make a more informed decision. And I really, truly hope that that bill passes because things are happening very quickly. Once December 31st rolls around, in theory, every single individual at the Whitehaven and Polk Center will have all the paperwork necessary to move into the community. I don't understand why this is happening with such quickness. To me, it doesn't seem like it addresses the needs of care. It seems to be more like something akin to human trafficking. That's all I have to say.